When I was 18 years old, just about to leave my parents' house for the first time in my life, my dad sat me down and he gave me this piece of advice that has stayed with me all these years. It was very simple, but it was remember who you are and always be true to yourself. It's what we're talking about today because it is something that unfortunately I don't think we have the opportunity to do a lot nowadays. Or we get misconstrued with the idea of what it means to actually be yourself. So, without further ado, let's get into it. My wife and I were watching Christopher Robin the other day, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically a spin-off of the Winnie the Pooh book or series. I don't know what it is, but it's basically a story of Winnie the Pooh story. But Christopher Robin, he's the main boy who plays with Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, Eeyore, all those little guys, right? He grows up. He goes off to war, he gets home, starts a family. But then the thing about Christopher Robin is he gets so focused on his job, he begins to forget the things that are actually important in his life. So, for example, he goes to work more and neglects his family when he's at home. And he's setting this example of you have to work hard. You have to focus on doing right because nothing comes from nothing. That's a common theme in that movie is nothing comes from nothing. And his daughter is seeing him do this. And his daughter is about to go to boarding school. And so she's studying a lot, getting ready to go to boarding school. And she's always in her room. She never has time to play. And Christopher Robin is proud of her. But his wife sees that she's not being a little kid. And it's sad because the wife and the daughter actually go off to a cottage for a weekend. And the whole point is they're supposed to be playing and spending time together. And Christopher Robin is also supposed to go. But there was a big issue with work, so he had to stay behind and focus on work. During that time, he gets in contact with Winnie the Pooh. And it's kind of funny because one of the first things that Winnie the Pooh says to Christopher Robin is he just says, "Christopher Robin." That sounds more like Dobby, but you get what I'm saying. He's like, "Hey, Christopher Robin, my old friend." What Winnie the Pooh says. And Christopher Robin says, "How did you recognize me? Like I'm completely different." And Winnie the Pooh looks at him and goes, "No, you're still Christopher Robin." My wife's going to hate that I did that impression. But it's such a powerful principle, actually. Because deep down, he was still Christopher Robin. And spoiler alert, the movie continues where he actually figures out how to save the company without firing a bunch of people. But then he also just reignites his childhood passion of playing and focusing on the things that matter most. Like, it's a pretty good movie, actually. I would recommend it. Just because the message of, focusing on what matters most is really important. But there's also a big chunk of that movie that's focused on, hey, Christopher Robin, you're still that same boy that you used to be. They used to play with us in 100 Acre Woods. And you're still in there. Let's bring him out. It's what we're talking about today. It's all about being who you are. And let's talk about something really quickly. Be yourself gets tossed around a lot. That phrase, be yourself. And while there's a lot of truth to that, and it sounds nice on a coffee mug or slapped across an Instagram post, like an inspirational one, it can get misconstrued. What does that actually mean? And more importantly, how do we live it out without falling into the trap of complacency? Because here's the truth. Being yourself isn't just about accepting who you are. That's one part of it, but it's not all of it. It's about owning it and refining it and growing into the most authentic, courageous version of yourself. Because oftentimes, a lot of the reasons why we don't show who we are to everyone is because we might be afraid of what they say. We might be afraid of their judgment. But we'll talk more about this. The thing is if you are more of yourself, you will attract people who are very similar to you as well. But like I said, we'll go into that more deeply. But self-acceptance and self-improvement go hand in hand. Getting after it, this podcast's theme is all about helping people understand their capabilities, what they're able to accomplish. And in order to do that, you have to accept who you are. And you have to accept all your flaws, all your talents, all your skills, and don't try and pretend to be someone else. Because if you listen to this podcast, you'll know that I talk about people who inspire me. Like Michael Jordan, great example. The thing about Michael Jordan is, yes, he had a lot of natural ability and talent. He was tall, he was athletic, and he was just gritty with his skills. But I'm not Michael Jordan, and so I'm not going to try and become him. There are things that I'll look at his life and be like, oh man, he was driven, he was competitive, he fought like no one else. Those are all things I can apply to my own life. But if I try and 100% turn my life into Michael Jordan's, I'm no longer Brett. I'm a impersonator of Michael Jordan. It's like when you go to Vegas and you see all these Elvis impersonators. They're not actually Elvis. Another spoiler alert. Believe it or not, they're not. And they're just trying to be Elvis. Sad reality. It's the truth. So I want to first break down the myth of just be yourself. Because yes, it's good advice, but it's not the full picture. Chris Williamson, one of my favorite podcasters, he put it this way. He said, we're all works in progress, not finished products. The goal isn't to arrive, it's to evolve. And there's a danger in mistaking authenticity for permanence. Like, you are not the version of yourself today that you will be in 10 years. And like, if you're insecure, if you're unhealthy, if you're bitter towards someone, if you're holding a grudge, like, that's all real, but it's not fixed yet. You can work on these skills. That version of you that exists today, it's a starting point, but it's not the ceiling. It's not where you're going. You're always supposed to be working on yourself. And if you're listening to this podcast, I hope that's the case. When you say, be yourself, or when someone tells you, hey, be yourself, we have to clarify. We have to be honest about who we are and become committed to becoming the best version of ourselves that we can be. So, the myth of just be yourself, it's a myth. Radically becoming self-aware of who you are, your talents, like, it takes work. But to be yourself, you literally have to know yourself. And this next podcast I'm going to record after today's is going to be all about how to spend time with yourself, thinking and envisioning a future for yourself. And we'll get into that more, but that's part of it. You have to understand who you are. And so that's why I think I talk about journaling as much as I do. I talk about having a support system around you, because all these things will help you identify, one, what's important to you. And you should always understand what your priorities are. Because if you know what they are, and if you're honest about what your priorities actually are, then that'll teach you a lot about who you are and the things that are interesting to you and things you should work on. So, like, here's the thing I learned about, or from Meditations, which is Marcus Aurelius's journal, right? He says, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. How does that apply to being yourself? Here's the thing. You can't control what people think about you. And guess what? They will think about you. I heard this thing the other day that made me really rethink, like, being authentically myself in a more positive way. It's from an account that I follow on TikTok called Higher Up Wellness. And if you're into fitness, if you're into self-development, I personally, like, it's a great follow. But in that post, he was saying how we get so focused on what other people think of us, and how it's like it dictates a lot of our actions day to day. Like, we want to impress our boss. We want to make our wife super happy. We want to make our friends like us. And if you're trying to fit a mold that you're not made for, it's going to be a lot harder to make that happen, because it does not feel authentic for yourself. And once you start lying to yourself about who you are, it gets so confusing. I've fallen into that trap before, and it's not worth it. It is not worth it. Now, self-awareness gives you that power because it's the foundation of authenticity. When you're self-aware about who you are, you know what you like, your interests are, your talents, that's great. Because once you know what drives you, you know what your insecurities, your fears, your hopes, your core values, you can start aligning your actions with that person who you want to be and not just the person who you default to. Let me paint you a picture. So I used to be this kid who was very confident in the things that he liked. Like, I was young. I've talked about this before, but I was a nerd. I loved comic books. I loved Legos, like video games, all those kind of things I was really into. I liked playing sports, but I didn't like watching them. And I watched myself go through high school giving up those things. And I no longer would like sit down and play video games as much as I used to, which could be a good thing. Like, I was out socializing, and that's not necessarily bad. But I enjoyed it, and I wasn't doing it. I stopped like really learning about like super nerdy things like space. I loved learning about space. I still do now, and I'm glad I've restarted that. And it was like I suppressed that version of myself to fit in with a group that I really liked. And the people who I hung out with were some of my like closest friends. I still like a lot of those guys who I used to hang out with. And my wife, Allie, she was one of my friends too. So not to say it was a bad thing to hang out with that group, but I definitely wasn't my full true self. Like, when we were all hanging out, I wasn't like, guys, did you see that they found a planet in another galaxy that has artificial light? Did you guys see that? I never talked about things like that because I didn't want to come off as like a weird nerd, which is so false. Because I think someone probably would have been interested to hear what I had to say. And that's what I learned is like, it was a fear that had no real evidence behind it that I should be scared of that thing, if that makes sense. And I can almost guarantee you can think of some things in your life where you might be trying to fit a mold that you don't necessarily fit. And it's not a bad thing. Again, like I said, this is a starting point for you to really be self-aware about who you are. When I started dating Allie, little things like my nerdy crap came out every now and then. Like, I'd tell her about some Marvel characters and get super deep into this, like the comic book stuff, bore her probably about it. Like, or I'd tell her about Star Wars and like how I watched all the Clone Wars, which is like it's like a cartoon show about, it's in between episode 2 and episode 3 of Star Wars, but it's like the 7 season series just with cartoons and Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan, just nerdy crap. But like, all these things would kind of slip out, and I would try and dial it back because I didn't want her to think like, oh man, I'm dating a nerd. This he's kind of weird. But the more I talked about it, the more she's like, I actually really like that stuff. Like, tell me more. And she brought that out in me. And once I realized like she's not going anywhere because, you know, I've said super nerdy things that would have turned other people away, she stayed right by my side. I was like, she must really like me. So putting my wife out there, you have a crush on me, Allie. I have a crush on her too, so that works. But she brought that out of me. And then once I kind of re-embraced that side of me, where I would learn about science more, I would spend time reading about new health studies that came out, about omega-3s, like random things that I nerd out about that I really enjoy learning. And then I would tell her, and she would sit there and listen. And the thing that I noticed about that experience was I felt like myself for the first time in a long time. And it wasn't because like I was refining myself, but in a way I was, because I was no longer trying to fit some kind of mold. I was being Brett. And you know what? Good things have come from being me. Like, from my own personal life, when I am more myself, I study things I'm interested in. I will spend time doing things that I like with people that I love. But it's just a chance for me to really work on my skills. Like, another thing too is that I love to write. And I didn't really understand that, but when I was a kid, I told people that I wanted to be an author. And once I actually started working on my writing skills, which began about 2 years ago, I've fallen in love with the idea of just being able to get your thoughts out on paper and learning from what you believe. Because for self-discovery, writing has been one of the best practices for me. And then it's fun to be like, okay, well, can I take this to another level? Can I try and be more creative in my writing? Maybe I can write a fiction story. And that's what I mean by, we're meant to evolve, but you first have to get an understanding of who you are. And so for you, it might be, you love to paint and you don't really want to spend a lot of time on it because painters historically don't make a lot of money. It's not a great career nowadays. And you're scared to take that step. But if that would make you feel more authentic to who you are, what's wrong with that? That's the problem that I think us trying to fit some kind of mold that society has made, that's what we run into. Because creativity and being someone who's unique, like that kind of gets a backseat nowadays. It's sad to see because I have met so many people who are very, very creative, but they don't have an outlet for it because, they're not working on their hobbies. They're not doing these things. And it's not necessarily like that might be the best thing for them to do. But I do think that it is important to really understand what you like and then figure out the things that you could work on as skills. Another thing I love to do is communicate with others. And so I will study communication techniques to help me in sales, to help me in my marriage, to help me on podcasts. Like I'm trying to get better in these areas of my life so I can fully become the best version of myself. Be fully authentic to what I enjoy, what I like to get after. Running's another one. It's not for everyone, but for me, it is a mental battle. Every time that I get on a treadmill or I go out for a run, I have to sometimes force myself to do it. And I love it because it is a challenge every single time. Some people might not like it, but it gives me a chance to authentically be myself, challenge myself, and do something that's difficult for a better outcome in the future. One thing that I would say is sometimes you need to filter out the noise. Because one of the hardest parts of embracing who you are is blocking out the noise. It's the molds that I'm talking about that society has made or that other people have put upon you. Like if you're in a friend group that you want to be a part of and you can't be yourself because you're afraid they'll reject you, you might be in the wrong place. And that's okay. Like I said, this is a starting point for you to understand where you can work on, where you can improve, and what you can be doing to live more authentic to who you are. Like everyone has an opinion on how you should look, how you should act, talk, dress, what you should believe in, who you should vote for, how you should behave, what your dreams should be. Everyone has opinions. But going back to that TikTok I referenced earlier about the higher up wellness guy, he said something in there that really brought this to life for me. He said, we are so focused on what other people think of us, but in their eyes, we're just a background character in their own story. We don't even, they're not thinking about us at nighttime. They're not sitting in bed thinking, Brett literally wore jeans and a t-shirt to work today. What a clown. And if they are thinking that, then they have their own problems. That should tell you something. Hey, at least you wore an outfit that they're thinking about when they're trying to go to bed. I don't know. There's another reframe for you. But it is so hilarious because I do this all the time too. When I meet people, I will talk to them for, let's just say it's a sales call. I'll have 30 minutes with them where I'm talking to them and I'll get all the stuff done that I need to. I'll send them all the follow-up stuff after the meeting. Maybe that whole time is 45 minutes. And then I stop thinking about them. I go do another task. And I'll set a task later on to be like, hey, follow up with this person. But I'm not thinking about them. And odds are they're probably not thinking about me either. They might be thinking about the product. I might be thinking about their business and how we can potentially help them. But I'm not thinking about that person 100%, Do you understand what I'm saying? But Ryan Holiday said this. He said, the world will ask you who you are. And if you don't know, the world will tell you. Boom. I'm going to re-say that because I think it's very important that you understand this concept. The world will ask you who you are. And if you don't know, the world will tell you. So what that means, the world's going to say, okay, you need to fit this standard mold. You need to go work at 9 to 5. You need to vote this way. You need to believe in these things. And if you don't, you're a bad person. But if you don't believe those things yourself, and then you try and fit that mold, you're lying to yourself. And that's a bad place to be in. Try not to lie to yourself. I would say if you can, never do it, because it's just going to create a bad relationship with yourself. And if you don't define yourself, you'll become a collage of everyone else's expectations. My antidote to that is to find solitude. Like I said, spend time with yourself. That's why I'm doing a podcast on this in the next episode. But reflect on your life. Practice silence, just being there with your thoughts. Put the phone down. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes, because when you sit there for a while, it's kind of scary, some of the thoughts that you might have. You know, the worries come up. The pain that you felt comes out. And you have to be willing and courageous to sit with those feelings, to sit with those thoughts, and to actually think about them. Because if you don't, they're just going to continue staying in the back of your mind, and it's going to keep weighing you down. And then the time will come when it gets overwhelming, and that's how you have an anxiety attack. That's how you fall into a mental health crisis. So it's important to do this for anything, for your mind. Give it a break and just be with your thoughts. Try and think through things. How did the day go? What can you do better? What is something that you liked that you want to do again the next day? All these things are important. Here's where the real magic happens. You can love yourself and still want to change. Like, I absolutely love myself. I'm confident in myself. It's taken years to get to this point, and I'm kind of surprised I can say it on a podcast like this, because it's been a love-hate relationship with myself my entire life. But now I'm confident that I can look you in the eyes in this camera right now. If you're watching this, I'm looking at the camera. I love myself. You know? That's a cool thing to say. And I like I said, I haven't always been there. And it might take you some practice to get to that point. But you can love yourself and still want to change. Like, my entire mission in life is to, one, be a lifelong learner, and then two, teach it to other people. Teach what I learned to other people so they don't have to go through some of the hard challenges that I did, or that they can take these lessons, apply it to their life, and become a better version of them. Because at the end of the day, if you're just getting better for yourself, I think that leads to an empty life. It has to be a two-way street. You get better, and you help others do the same. That's why I have this podcast. It's like a audio, video, documented journey of me doing this for myself and hopefully for others. Like, I've put out this will be 117 episodes. If one of them helped just one person, and I've done 117 episodes, spent hours and hours and hours, probably weeks of hours, podcasting, prepping, and doing all these things to get this content out, if it helps just one person, all those hours of me working on this thing is worth it to me. Because life is hard. And if I can make it easier for one person, just one little simple concept that they applied to their life that made it easier, this is a success for me. And I'm proud of the work that I've done. Like, you can always be proud of where you've gotten. And it's still important to recognize where you can go. I talk about running a lot on this podcast. And when I ran my sub-3 marathon, you know, I instantly had the goal or the thought, like, oh man, I wonder if I could do it faster. Like, I ran sub-3, I qualified for Boston, but I wonder if I can go faster. The same thought went through my head when I ran my first ultra was, I wonder if I can go farther. I just did a 50K, maybe a 50 milers next. So another spoiler alert, it's coming up in April 2026. Me and my brother are running in Sedona. So if you want to do the 50 miler in Sedona with us, let's do it. But being yourself, going back to this whole concept, it doesn't mean staying stagnant. Like, it means operating from a foundation of honesty. Like, you always have to be honest with yourself where you're at. It means knowing your core values, staying true to them, and then understanding what your purpose is, which will take a lot of time to understand. It'll take a lot of time to figure out for yourself. But I promise you, the more time that you spend in solitude, in silence, journaling, reflecting, whatever you want to do, it'll help you understand what your purpose in life is. And you have to let go of what people expect of you. Like, unless it's for work or, you have other responsibilities, you don't have to fit some certain mold. You are a unique person. That's what makes life amazing, is that everyone has different traits. Everyone has different talents. I really admire my wife because she's a very creative person. She will paint, she'll quilt, she will bake sourdough, which if you don't think that's creative, watch someone who actually bakes sourdough. It is a creative process. And she has a podcast of her own. She gets creative with her study habits for being a pilot. So when, she has training coming up, she's ready for it. But she is one of the most creative people I've ever met. And I think it's amazing to see her thrive in all the areas that she does because she has certain skills that make her unique. I don't have her creativity. Not a chance. That's why I do podcasts about self-development, because I can't sit down and really tell stories the way I want to, as she does in her true crime podcast, which you should go check it out if you like true crime. It's called Siblings in Crime. It's with her and her brother. It's a good one. But that's what makes life beautiful, is everyone is unique and everyone can do amazing things in life that some people can't. And I love art, but I can't create it. I'm not a painter. I'm not a sculptor. I took 4 years of clay in high school, but the best thing I ever made was a rectangle robot. It's like the size of a shoebox, but I called him Ripley the robot. He was our volleyball team's mascot for a while, actually, but wasn't good work. It was just more of a meme for the team, if that makes sense. But I would say improvement, when rooted in self-acceptance, becomes sustainable, because you'll understand the things that you want to work on. And to help you with this process, excuse me, sorry, I'm getting over a cold, so apologies. But to help you with this process, I came up with 5 steps that have helped me a lot that I think can also do the same for you. So the first is journal with brutal honesty. This is not something that you should be censoring. Like, ask yourself, what am I pretending not to know about myself? Because deep down, you know exactly who you are. And let that version of yourself shine. So journal and be honest. Do not censor anything. This is just between you and the pages that you write on. Or I journal in the Notes app on Apple. It's my favorite thing ever. Just do it. Like, sit down, take 10 minutes, start there, and then just sit with yourself every day. And if you have thoughts, write them down. And be honest about it. Do not hold anything back. The second thing I would say is audit your environment. Like, are the people around you supporting your growth, or are they keeping you small? Sometimes it's hard to let friends go. I've had to do it, and it is not a pleasant experience. But a lot of the times, the people who we surround ourselves with, it's like crabs in a bucket. They will, you'll try and crawl out of the bucket, and then one crab will pull you back down. They'll say, "Get down here, Mr. Krabs." So think about who you're spending time with, because you become the product of your environment. That includes who you spend time with. The third thing is say no to things that don't align with your goals, with your interests, with your aspirations. Unless you're supporting someone, I would say no and be protective of your time. Every time you say yes to something you don't believe in, you chip away at who you actually are. That might be hard to hear, but if your friend's like, "Hey, let's go see a Sam Smith concert," and you're like, inside, you're like, "Man, I hate Sam Smith. That guy is a creepy man. I don't want to go see him." But you say, "Okay, yeah, I'll go with you." You just chipped away a little piece of yourself. You're going to go see the devil man. Sam Smith. You have taken a turn for the worst. Maybe he's embracing who he truly is. And if he is, I'm sorry I said any of that. But number 4 is pursue excellence, not perfection. I love the quote that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not a choice, but a habit. So be excellent. Your goal isn't to be flawless. It's to be real and to be consistent. If you're aiming for perfection, I don't know if that's sustainable. And you might feel the same way. But if you take it day by day and you refine yourself over a long period of time, you be patient during this process, then that excellence that you're pursuing will become who you are. You will become excellent. And excellence to you might look different to someone else. Like, comparison is great for a couple reasons. One, it can give you motivation on things that you want to work on yourself. Two, it can help you see what other people have and, again, motivate you to get to that point. But it should never be used as a measuring stick. You should never use comparison as, oh, man, that person is so far ahead of me. They might be, because they might have been doing what you want to do. They have probably been doing it for years. And you can't compare yourself on your own journey to someone else because their circumstances are different than yours, and it's not fair to yourself to compare in that sense. But if you see someone who's like, that guy's driven, compare yourself to them and say, okay, what are they doing that I can apply to my own life? Pursue excellence and not perfection. The last thing, and I talk about this a lot, but it's celebrating the progress along the way. You won't wake up fully evolved in one day. But every small choice, every act of integrity, it builds your foundation for a long-term future. And so be patient with yourself during this time, because when you work on yourself, you're going to stumble, you're going to fail, you're going to have days where you don't see the silver lining in anything and you don't want to keep going. But guess what? If you want that life that you're dreaming of, it is on the other side of hard work, consistency, and working on yourself every single chance that you get. Build that foundation and be patient. When good things happen, when you see small, little incremental amounts of progress going in your life, that is still progress and that should be celebrated. Do something nice. Take your wife, take your husband out to dinner, and just spend time doing something that you enjoy and celebrate the fact that you're a different person than who you were yesterday. Marcus Aurelius has this great point where he says, you can't hold on to the past and you can't hold on to the future. Those two things no longer exist. The only thing you have now is the present moment. And so he even argues that every time you breathe in, you're breathing out the old version of yourself. Like, it's that consistent. You're never the same version of yourself every single day. It's a weird concept to grasp. But if you look at life that way, that every day is a chance for you to start over on your goals, to get one step closer to reaching them, it's a little bit of a reframe that helps you with longevity. Here's the big takeaway from today. Being yourself is not about stubbornly clinging to the status quo. It's about showing up as who you are, fully, freely, fiercely. And you have to be humble enough to evolve during this time. Stop apologizing for your quirks, your passions, your values. Stop waiting for the world to approve of the real you. You will attract people who have the same values as you, your own quirks, your own passions. They will come find you. Show up anyway. The world needs less conformity, and we need more courage to be yourself, to be authentic to who you are, to your interests, to your passions. So go out and be yourself. And as you do it, keep asking, how can I make this version of me just a little better from yesterday? That's how the world becomes amazing, is if we're all doing things to work on ourselves and give it back to the world. And I know you can do it. I know you can do it because I've been in that boat for a while. And it wasn't until the past couple of years where I've been comfortable being authentically myself. And there's a lot of evidence if you go back to the first episodes of the podcast, I was not as confident as I am today, because I was nervous about what people thought about this podcast, about what I had to say. But now it's like, you know what? It's who I am, and I shouldn't be afraid of that. And neither should you, with the things that you're interested in, with your passions, with your quirks. If you're a nerd, be a freaking nerd. If you're a goth person, great. Like, if you're a theater kid, do your thing. Because if you stop doing what you enjoy, you're going to be victim to pretty much the world eating you alive. And you hear all the time like, oh man, I wish I could escape the rat race. But what I would say to those people is that the rat race consumed you and slowly turned you into the person that you are. It doesn't have to be that way. You can be proud of the things that make you you, and you can make them better by consistently refining yourself. That's what getting after it's all about. That's what Teddy Roosevelt calls the strenuous life. You have it in you. Don't let people stomp it out of you. Bring it back. Just like Allie helped me bring myself back. So I appreciate you guys for listening to this episode. This is a very important topic to me because I know you're getting after it on your own, but it's going to look different for everybody. And once you understand that, then you can fully embrace that path and go down it with confidence. The world needs more you. And that advice my dad gave, it applies to you as well. Be who you are and fully accept that. Never turn your back on who you are. If this helped you at all, please leave a comment on Spotify, rate this podcast, share it with someone who might need to hear this message. And I just appreciate your guys' time. It means a lot that you spend it with your friend Brett. And until next episode, everyone, you know the drill. Keep getting after it. Thanks, guys.